This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Monday, October the 27th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams, he's produced the program. You'll be speaking with David when you pick up the phone to give us a shout to get in the queue and on the air. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 86-26. So opening weekend at the World Series, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was feast and famine and nothing short of that. Game one, wow, I mean, pretty exciting stuff, right? I was excited regardless, but you know, we get 11 runs on 14 hits and a few home runs. Game two, 1 run, 4 hits, no home runs, even though Yamamoto, the starter for the Dodgers, was absolutely lights out. But a couple of curious things. So for game one, Alejandro Kirk, the Blue Jays catcher and all-star, hit a home run, becoming the first Mexican-born player to ever hit a home run in the World Series. And then, of course, Addison Barger blew it wide open with the first ever pinch-hit grand slam in World Series history. So, Game 3 tonight in Los Angeles. We'll see how it goes. Max Scherzer, future Hall of Famer, he gets the ball. He's on the bump. It's his fourth World Series appearance for 4 different teams. Look, Max has been great over his career. You don't really know what you're going to get from him these days at the age of 41. But in the first inning, when you have to face Ohtani and Betts and Freeman, Scherzer's first inning ERA is around 12. So we might get a bit of the tale told this evening. So let's go get him. All right, you know, I stay away from social media for the most part on the weekend just for the obvious reasons. But I was surprised yesterday, I had a quick scroll to see people sucking the life out of people, sucking the joy out of folks who are just enjoying a bit of baseball here in October. So apparently it's a thing that it's not Canada's team because so many of the players are Americans. What? There's only one team in the country. Yes, there's only one player born in this country, and that's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He plays for the Dominican Republic, and of course, he was born in Canada because his father was playing for the Expos. So imagine the self-loathing to just try to get in and make that a point. So bizarre. Anyway, so just a couple of quickies for your awareness purposes only. Every now and then when I'm told about scams, I really feel like I should be putting it out there. Even if it spares one person from getting scammed, it's probably worth it. Here's a new one going around, and it's a phone call. Okay. They say the name of the person they're calling. So in my case, Patty, are you over the age of 55? And pay your bills on time, you're entitled to $1,000 from John Hogan. Then they want you to go to your bank information, of course, scam. And then it's back in the news today about the banks doing very little to protect their customers and folks having their bank accounts absolutely emptied. I'll get to it fairly quickly here. So 5 quick tips. Bank fraud is a significant concern in Canada and it's going up year over year. First off, it's your password. You really have to use a strong, unique password. Apparently, the most common password, and so says NordPass, the most common password used in Canada and dozens of other countries in 2025 is 123456. The second most common password, 123456-789. That's not good enough. You really need to do better to protect yourself on that front. And even if it takes a little bit of additional time, the 2-factor authentication. Sign up for it, take advantage of it. So the big banks will indeed offer it, but they don't do enough to make sure their customers use it. And never share your information with a phishing email or a phone scam, and they're out there all the time. Never share your password, that kind of stuff. Here's a couple that people might not think about. If you're in a public setting, like at the coffee shop or what have you, and you're using public Wi-Fi, don't use it for banking. Because there's the middleman is that the man in the middle who can scam you right there and then. And if you're going to download a banking app, do it from the bank proper, not from a third party, because that could be the gateway into your personal information. Okay, just always feel like I should put the scam information out there. All right, so we see that the Liberal candidate who ran in Lewisport Twillingate and lost the Progressive Conservative candidate Mark Bott by 18 votes, that's of course Derek Bennett. He submitted an application to the Supreme Court of Newfoundland and Labrador looking for a judicial recount. He referred to, here's a couple of things that I'm not 100% sure what he means. Mr. Bennett referred to extraordinary circumstances did not tell us exactly what the extraordinary circumstances are, but we will see a judicial recount, we think, to see whether or not the 18 votes could be overcome by Mr. Bennett. 18 doesn't sound like a lot, but in reality, it is. You know, because there would have been scrutineers representing the candidates and the various parties at the counting on election evening. So to think that there's that many that could be overcome is maybe a long shot. But I suppose if you're Mr. Bennett, it's probably worth it if you think you have a swing at it. All right. So we're still waiting for the incoming PC government to be sworn in. I do see plenty of commentary about the transition team, you know, two former cabinet ministers, and then people are pointing to Steve Outhouse and his role and his politics, what that might mean for questions going forward. So if you're one of those folks who have sent me extensive emails about it, you're happy to join us here on the program this morning. And all hands talking about things that have been pledged on the campaign trail. And look, they're good ideas, but good ideas need good, detailed components so that we can know whether or not we're on the right track. And one that always jumps out at me is travel nurses. Look, we have talked about that extensively on this program, and the hundreds of millions of dollars we've spent on travel agency nurses. And yes, when the justification was the province thought they need to hire them so that we can keep the hospitals and various clinics open, okay, but it got away from us in a hurry. So what is that plan? I know we're talking about adding 50 additional seats to the nursing school at Memorial and offering permanent full-time jobs upon graduation. All makes sense. But is that it? And will that address things that Yvette Coffey's talking about, with the prevalence of violence and the inability to get leave, the mandatory overtime? So reclassification, will that really pragmatically address those three areas of concern that the Registered Nurses Union talks about all the time, and understandably so? Also, in the world of recruitment, and as Yvette Coffey has said many times, it's about retention as much as anything else. She's right. In the world of recruitment, I've mentioned this a few times, but there's yet more stories coming forward about provinces and what they're doing to recruit. Now, apparently we've had teams down, for instance, at a conference in Chicago, trying to recruit healthcare professionals. They seem to be having some success in the province of British Columbia. Add to it now the province of Manitoba. So since the beginning of this year, they've been able to recruit 10 doctors and bring them straight into the fold. The college has done away with the need to write a Canadian certification exam, so 10 additional doctors simply by recruiting from the United States. In addition to those 10, there are 8 who have already accepted offers, and they're in the middle of the process. So looks like that can make a big difference. And where we are on that, not 100% sure, but you want to take it on, we can do it. This topic is just kind of come out of nowhere, even though we used to talk about it a little bit in the past. Is, you know, like here in this neck of the woods, there is the availability of public transportation, Metrobus and Go Bus. Ridership is up, way up, and there's a couple of reasons why. Many newcomers will ride the bus, and also with the bus pass provided to low-income earners, of course, more people on the bus. So now there's $50,000 of federal government money to conduct a feasibility study for a public transit system in rural areas of the Avalon Peninsula. So it's stretching between the sparsely populated communities. St. Mary's Bay stretches from St. Catharines to St. Vincent's. We know full well there are plenty of people living in the area, maybe residents with disabilities or seniors or people who don't have a vehicle and need to make their way to town for a variety of things. And maybe not necessarily only town either, but there's got to be a way for public transportation, not on the same scale as Metrobus, but some availability that can make it easier and more affordable for folks who do need to travel. And maybe for the aforementioned seniors or the people without a vehicle, people with disabilities. So be curious to see when that's going to get off the ground. And let's dig into it. All right, a few more. Remember, not that long ago, when there was any conversation of building public infrastructure in the P3 model, it was widely rebuked. So the private-public partnership. NAPE is back in the conversation now, looking for a conversation with Premier-designate Tony Wakeham about moving away from what they call the privatization creep. Look, when the money has been tight, it looks very attractive. And we've now entertained the P3 model to build just about everything. Hospitals, mental health and addictions facilities, the upcoming penitentiary, a hospital in Corner Brook, long-term care facilities in Central. So it is the go-to. If we're looking around how effective they've been in the long term, P3s have come up short more times or more often than not. So it is a worthy conversation, because if it's a feel good now for a little bit of additional financial pain later, that cost-benefit analysis hasn't really been conducted as publicly as we need it to be. Yeah, people want things built. You want schools built, long-term care facilities, a new penitentiary, new hospitals. Everybody wants the critical infrastructure to be in place. But some of the better broken down windows, like 10 years cost, 20 years cost, 30 years cost, had it been done in the traditional method of the public sector going to tender versus the new P3 model that is certainly undeniably a big part of the conversation here. Back when it used to get a lot of concern, from organised labour in particular, the worry was that the staff would not be unionised. That got tempered. I believe Paul Davis was the Premier at the time. And there was public announcements that, no, staff will absolutely be unionised, which kind of took some of the wind out of the sails of Labour at the time. But the P3 conversation doesn't get enough conversation as far as I can tell. All right, let's get into the transition. Just a couple of more topics there. So out go the Liberals, in come the Tories. So even something as fundamental as when we were told that the analysis had been completed looking at the natural gas deposits off our shores, trillions of cubic feet of natural gas currently not being utilized, and one big sticking point there is that there's no royalty regime. So unless the operators offshore or any proponents in the wings know exactly what the business model looks like based on royalties, then there won't be any advancement. Whether or not you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, it's just a thing that is either going to be utilized or not. But until there's a royalty regime, there will not be anything developed offshore regarding natural gas. So when the Liberals told us what they had found, we already knew it, is what kind of work has gone into the royalty regime? How detailed and elaborate has been the transition work to ensure the incoming government can hit the ground running? So things like that. I mean, I'm not behind the curtain and know exactly how it's been operating, but we do have questions, and it'd be nice to know when the government's going to be sworn in, as a matter of fact. All right, a couple more. This one also with energy. This week, or over the course of the next few days, members of the Innu Nation are going to be voting on the compensation settlement arrived between the Innu Nation and members of the communities of Shetiji and Natwashish about the Upper Churchill and the court case that had dragged on forever with Hydro-Quebec. So the offer at this moment is for Hydro-Quebec to pay $87 million to both Shetiji and Natwashish, annual payments in a what they call a reconciliation and collaboration agreement, and that runs over the course of 16 years. In addition to that, it's 3% of dividends Hydro-Quebec receives from Churchill Falls as long as it produces power. So not insignificant. When it came to Muskrat, of course, the New Dawn agreement was part of the permission, or whatever the right word is, for development to proceed there. So it's got to receive 50% of eligible voters in each community. Shetiji and Natwashish must cast votes, and 60% of the vote in each community must be in favour. What we don't know is precisely what this means for Gull Island. There's also the thought, we can talk about the Upper Churchill MOU, of course, and we absolutely should. But Innu Nation, does this vote have any impact on Gull? Because they have said there will be no Gull unless they are made whole to the tune of about $1 billion in lost revenue at Muskrat based on the last rate mitigation monies. Haven't heard much about that. Innu Nation were represented at the press conference when the MOU was revealed, but presence doesn't equal being made whole, as they say, in the world of potential lost revenues at Muskrat. But that's a pretty big one. All right, get a bunch of emails, but curiously, no calls that I can recall right off the top of my head regarding the criminal justice system and the proposed federal legislation known as Bill C-14. We're talking about harsher sentences, including consecutive sentences, the reverse onus to get bail, all of these things, and we can break it down and get into some of the specific areas that have been covered in the legislation, which still needs some additional scrutiny, still needs to be passed in Parliament, and will eventually be adjudicated at the Supreme Court level, just like when Prime Minister Harper brought it in, because it will be deemed as to whether or not it's constitutional. One thing that I think would be helpful is, especially when we talk about bail, and even if you use the sloganeering of jail, not bail, and there's a difference if you were, say, for instance, charged with domestic violence versus one of the nuisances that took a back home, beat the hell out of the bank in Mount Pearl, who are now facing charges. What we don't track is the number of crimes that have been committed when someone's out on bail. So doesn't that seem like a pretty important piece of the puzzle to understand just the risk posed to Canadians by folks who are granted bail? We hear the notables. In British Columbia, a man out on bail for assault against his partner, and hours later she was dead. So we hear those stories. But even if it was just, a breakdown of the various types of crimes and how, percentage-wise, how common it is for someone on bail to commit another crime. It would be helpful when we have these types of big picture conversations, I would think, but we don't track it. And why we don't track it, I really have no earthly idea. Okay. So, Doug Ford and the Conservative government of Ontario took it upon themselves, I assume upon themselves, to have an ad buy of some $75 million to play an ad in the United States on television to talk about the downside of tariffs. Doug Ford has been hammering away at the president for months. What makes this one different is that they were using the words of one of the, I think, political giant figures in the Republican Party is past President Ronald Reagan. Now, yes, some of the presentation was not included, and yes, President Reagan was about to impose severe tariffs on Japan, but he talked at great length inside that address and included into the next State of the Union about how tariffs are bad, and they end up badly for both sides. So, even going back to the pass of Smoot-Hawley back in the 1930s, or I think 1930 itself, and all the promises made there by bringing jobs back and to increase labor productivity, what led to the Great Depression. So regardless of what side of this you're on, when that ad ran, and of course using the GOP's words against them, the president, in yet another example of his temper tantrum, has now applied an additional 10% tariff on top of everything else that was already being tariffed. And to use the quotes, for starters, the American importers and American consumers to pay the vast majority of the tariff. Flavio Volpe, the president of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association and member of the Prime Minister's Council on Canada-US Relations, said on social media, to be clear, a TV commercial is about to cost American consumers about $50 billion because. So, look, we can justifiably ask, where's all the trade deals? And we can absolutely ask as to the veracity of the approach being taken by Prime Minister Carney, who told Canada he was the best to deal with Trump. But the bottom line is, how do you deal with him? And what's the likelihood, if we enter into some sort of agreement, that he'll abide by it? And I think that's a fair question, given the fact he didn't abide by the most recent trade deal that he signed and said was a great deal. Then people want to dig in on supply management. And maybe that's one of the bugaboos holding it up. We know how supply management works. If you ask dairy cattle farmers in Wisconsin, they wish they had it. So you know how it works, I suppose, right? There's a minimum price set, the third pillar being tariffs. But the fact of the matter is, the Americans have better access to Canadian markets with dairy products than Canadians have to American markets. So I really don't understand how that has been such a hurdle. And what do we do here? It depends on who you ask. The end result of supply management is that Canadians may indeed be paying higher prices. But if you look at places with, whether it be Australia or New Zealand, when the Australians took away regulation, prices went up. So, again, and what they do in the United States is they pay for lost revenues in the form of subsidies from the federal government, aka socialism. The biggest problem in the United States is overproduction. It's something we try to address head on in this country with supply management. That's not a thumbs up or thumbs down for it. But look, the ad featuring Ronald Reagan was not a fraud. It probably didn't include the entirety of the address, including the slapping of 100% tariff on Japan products, but he's been pretty clear. If anybody can remember any of the Reagan era or to read a book, he was absolutely a free trader, a free and fair trader, and pointed specifically and oftentimes to exactly what the downsides are of tariff-based trade wars. So there's lots of people in the country who are still blaming it on anybody here, but man, oh man, it was instigated south of the border. Has Carney done a good job? I don't know. But now the president won't even speak to him. So, look, the chaos it's caused and the impact on prices is real. And none of it's helpful. And you can point the finger of blame wherever you see fit, but a TV ad was enough to see another 10% slapped on, and the trade talks have stalled in full. Not so sure how that could be constituted a good thing or a bad thing. Very quick one. Quote, "We should be aware of the demagogues who are willing to declare a trade war against our friends, weakening our economy, our national security, and the entire free world, all while cynically waving the American flag." Who said that? Ronald Reagan. We're on Twitter or VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. If you heard something off the top of the show that interests you enough to call, fine. If it's something that you didn't hear brought up and you'd like to talk about it, let's do that too. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's begin this morning on the top of the board. Line number 1. Good morning, Kevin. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Barry. I'm calling this morning because of an incident that happened up this way. I'm in Buckins, and incident that happened there on Saturday, and a terrible disgrace to our 911 system. We had a young lady hiking and fell and went and had a severe cut to her neck. And, she was only supposed to be gone for a short period of time. So when she didn't show up, people started to look for her, and her aunt found her, and anyway, automatically called 911 and got the normal protocol. You got to wait for this, you got to wait for that. We got to call the urgent, we got to do this, we have to do that. In the meanwhile, she was home, pressure on this cut, and the lady actually held her. Well, I had a couple of friends helped for a while. Held pressure on this cut for over an hour and a half. This is a terrible situation. And we have a search and rescue committee here in the town, second to none, approximately 20 minutes away from this patient, and we're told by 911 to stand down. They were told not to assist. Now, this, there's something wrong with our system when we get into stuff like this. There's something seriously wrong. The area that this young lady was into was treacherous, to say the least. There was a bare minimum hiking trail, to be completely honest with you. And anyway, she sat there for an hour and a half while 911 decided if they were going to send assistance. There was a request made for a camera and a helicopter to come in and try to take her out of this situation, and they weren't allowed to do anything. They weren't allowed to move. They were told to stand down till 911 assessed what was going on here.
Just one second, Kevin. Who told who to stand down?
The 911 operator, I guess, whoever they were talking to at 911, right? So, it's protocol, I guess, Patty, to be completely honest with you, right? That does this stuff. But anyway, she was left there, and for an hour and a half before they were allowed to send in search and rescue to attend to this person. And like I said, they asked for a camera and helicopter. They know the situation. The people in the area there, the lady's uncle is one of the outfitters here, and if he don't know the terrain in this area and the necessity for a helicopter, nobody do. That's how simple it is. But they refused to send a helicopter, and it's completely unbelievable. And eventually, after an hour and a half, they managed to be able to get the search and rescue to send in there. And this lady was only 650 yards from the road. It took an hour and 10 minutes and 8 people to carry her out in a basket over rocks, passing from one rock to the other. And yet 911 figured that, we don't need to use that resource to help this young lady to send that helicopter. Now, if somebody fell off the cliff in St. John's, you'd have boats, and I don't know, but they would reactivate the train system to get to them within a half hour. It's completely unbelievable. This young girl Well, there was a great possibility she would have died, except for one fact that she fell into the water, cold water at this time in the year, and that slowed down the bleeding process and stuff like this. And, not to mention the hyperthermia and all the other stuff that goes with it. And, one of the protocol was they had to had to talk to the RCMP, and they had to do their thing and everything else. Our system is completely broken. It's ridiculous. Normally, in this area, I've been here now 16 years. In this area, if we had an emergency, and we have lots of them because we have lots of skidders and hikers and everything else over here, and there's always, a situation. But normally we would call the local hospital, and there are a couple of places there in college. There was one for emergency, and before 911, we just asked for one for emergency, and an ambulance, search and rescue, and everything else was on the way. That search and rescue team in Buckens was 20 minutes away from this patient and was not allowed to do anything. Now, somebody should be ashamed of themselves. Somebody, heads should roll over stuff like this. In this day and age, and everything within government is all through managerial, BS that hangs everything up. You can't get a doctor's appointment. You can't do nothing because of this manager system. No, it's completely unacceptable, and it's broken, and it needs to be fixed. And there's only one way to fix it, is get rid of it altogether. The 911 system is definitely not working in rural Newfoundland. It's nowhere close to working. People are dying, and somebody got to understand that somebody has to take the bull by the horns and fix this up. And it's not only just this patient. When you look at her mother and her father and everything else, and her mother could manage to get up there where she was, but her father couldn't, stuff like this. And the trauma that these people are going through. Well, wait, almost over a little, probably close to 3 hours. To get a victim out, there should have been out in a half hour by a command helicopter. How can anybody say that something like this is acceptable in today's world?
Well, short answer is it's not. And look, I'm not taking away from your concern here, because it's obviously legitimate 100%, here's how bad it can be. It's no better in St. John sometimes. I mean, I had a buddy had to call an ambulance. They were in Mount Pearl. The ambulance had to come from CBS. So in Mount Pearl, the ambulance took 100 minutes. 100 minutes to get to someone in Mount Pearl. But number one.
That's terrible.
It is. And then when you talk about, mobilizing the cormorant helicopter and stuff, there's no cormorants in here. Someone would have to come in from Gander. So the whole system, whether it be search and rescue capacity, whether it be the ambulance system, and we don't really know how the ambulance system is working, because remember, we're in the middle of amalgamating the ground and the air. We were apparently not allowed to use the word red alert anymore, which is when you call and there's not an ambulance available. So it's going to be difficult in the future to measure how well we're doing, or how poorly we're doing, I guess.
Yeah, and there again, see, with the ambulance system, they set up another management office to look after that. And all these management offices ever do, it was create that bureaucracy that slows everything down. It's unacceptable. During the election, I heard Premier Hogan, when we're talking about officers, right? He was on to, well, we need to start another offices for major projects. That's one thing that Newfoundland don't need. There's another office. We need to get rid of the Terrorism office and actually put people in the field hands-on. That's what we need doing this problems. And people, never mind getting on here and complaining about the Liberal government, the PC government, and everything else. Come up with solutions and answers how to fix this stuff.
Sure.
And demand it to be fixed. Because we sit on our arse and on our computers and everything else. We're great laptop warriors and stuff like that. We actually do nothing, absolutely nothing, to help this province.
It's hard to argue with that, Kevin. So the outcome was everything worked out?
Well, Yeah, they got her to the hospital. If she hadn't fell into the water, like I said, there was a good chance of everything. She probably would, most likely would have bled out, right? And what they did, and then they had to do emergency surgery on her, stuff like this, right? And how does somebody on the phone decide that 500 kilometers away from somebody's in distress and they don't need that immediate assistance? How can somebody do that? There's something seriously wrong.
Yeah, understood. Kevin, and of course, the person on the phone is only doing what they've been told they have to do. And I guess that's a human resources on the ground issue, as you rightfully point out. I appreciate the time. I'm glad it worked out, albeit an absolute nightmare to try, holding your breath and crossing your fingers and toes, hoping for it. I appreciate the time, Kevin. Anything else quickly?
Well, no. And like I said, it's not the person on the phone. It's the protocols that kill us. That's all.
Totally understand. Appreciate the time. Thanks for doing it, Kevin.
Yeah, no problem, buddy. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. And just very quickly, those in the queue, stay right there. I mentioned off the top people saying just sucking the joy out of the baseball, saying, well, but there's no Canadians on the Jays. Nobody said there was, number one. And now I've been sent a note saying the Blue Jays are likely cheating because they were able to hit the starting pitcher for the Dodgers game one. What? And now apparently the Jays are playing dirty in delaying the Dodgers' flight back to Los Angeles from Toronto. I mean, if you've ever flown to the United States from a Canadian airport, you deal with United States Customs border agents in Toronto. So it's the American government and government employees paid by the American government who are dealing with you as you try to get on the aircraft to go back to the States, right? It's got nothing to do with Canadians at all. The Americans operate that portion of it. And, of course, the Dodgers going back to LAX, well, they had a bunch of stoppages and cancellations and postponements at LAX. Why? Because there's a shortage of air traffic controllers. So the Blue Jays or any Canadian or anybody getting paid by a Canadian entity at Toronto's Pearson had nothing to do with the Dodgers getting back to LA. So I don't know how anybody's being accused of playing dirty. Maybe it's just an idea about how things work. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're speaking with you. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Dwayne. You're on the air.
Morning, Patty. I don't call you much. I send you an odd email, but this morning I had felt that this was important enough to call about, and I'm in Ottawa Hospital this morning, and I got to take your listeners back to January of 2023. When I had my first diagnosis of cancer. Large B-cell lymphoma is what I had. And took some treatment at the Health Science, and sometime that summer I was diagnosed as in remission. And I came home, I went back home, and everything was fine until February of 24, and I got sick again, and was airlifted into St. John's. Cancer was back. So this time, my oncologist opted for a stem cell transplant, and I did that. And that summer, I had the same thing. I was in remission. And, go live your life, you're doing well. And I got home, and that next February of 25, February's a bad month for me. February of 25, same thing happened again. And this time, prognosis was not so good. But the doctors explained to me a new leading-edge clinical trial that was going on in Ottawa that I could put my name in for. I may or may not have been accepted. Fortunately, I was, but I got sick a few times, got rejected a few times, and now in September I got up to have my T cells removed. It's called the CAR T autoimmune therapy. and they take T cells out of your body. They cycled my blood 3 times through a machine and took out T cells, sent them to California, and treated them with a cancer-causing or cancer-killing antigen that is specifically designed for large B-cell lymphoma. But you got to be fairly healthy. The cancer can't be too aggressive. There's a few criteria items that you got to meet the criteria, and that's why I was rejected a couple times, because I wasn't well. But in any case, I got the cells out in September. I came back up here in October 2 weeks ago, and I got cells put back in. And it's clinical trials, but they're operating at about 60% success rate, which I'll take that after what I've been through so far. There's a bunch of other people up there from Newfoundland that's in on the same program, but there's also a lot of other people that don't know about it. And that was probably the main reason why I called, because I try to explain to my friends about it, and they say, the general answer is, I've never heard of it before. And so anyway, it's looking good. Doctors are in every day, and it's all looking up for me. Hopefully it'll all work out. But I just, more or less a public service announcement that there is hope, even after some of the basic cancer treatments that we're aware of. And the goal of this program is, if you do some research on it, the goal of the program is to make CAR-T the first line of defense, not have to go through chemo and then the cancer come back and go through stem cell, and then have to get then get on a list to get CAR-T somewhere out of the province. The company that's doing the clinical trials, they're trying to get it so that it's the first line of defense. And when you are diagnosed with large B-cell lymphoma, that's your go-to solution. That's your main option. So it's exciting, I think. And your listeners might be aware, you might have read that the Nobel Prize in Science was awarded to 3 researchers from 3 different, one in the States, I think 2 in Europe, that took the work that's done on CAR-T so far and are using it to target other diseases like arthritis and diabetes and other diseases that CAR-T can fix. And so, it's not just a dream. I think that it's pretty valid. That there's something to this research.
Well, fingers crossed that there is. It's fascinating that you called on this, Dwayne. It's not necessarily a friend of mine, but we have mutual friends, and he's in a CAR-T cell therapy clinical trial, but he's in a hospital in British Columbia. I know him a little bit, but in talking with my buddies about it, so for some reason I know that CAR is chimeric antigen receptors, and so they're engineering cleaning cells to, further have your immune system built up. It's part of immunotherapy inside fighting cancer. So I actually read a little bit about this, and then the next step, of course, they talk about, what is it called, monoclonal antibodies or something like that is also part of this clinical trial. So says this person, maybe not in the same clinical trial you are, but a CAR-T therapy clinical trial that they're engaged in, and he's talking about great success and feeling much better. So if it works, let's hope it makes its way through the entirety of the trial and gets Health Canada approved, so it can be one of the go-tos as opposed to a late-in-the-day clinical trial. Hope for the best.
Absolutely. There's a 3-part story, so I don't want to keep it too long. I'll just got to mention a shout out to Debbie Hanlon's family. She was doing treatment the same time I was, at the health science, and we were kind of roommates with in the ward for weeks, and then we went into on 4 North A, and she was 2 rooms from me, and we had long chats about getting the CAR T and going to Ottawa, and we were going to go together and all this stuff, and unfortunately it didn't. Something happened. I have no clue, but something happened and she didn't get there. And I just wanted to tell her family that I got her front and center. I'm there for her, too. It chokes me up a little bit because she was so hopeful that it was going to work for her, too. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to mention before I let you go,
Okay.
is that in 15 years ago, the Ottawa Hospital Authority, I'll call it, I'm not sure of the correct terminology, but there's 3 hospitals in the Ottawa area. They threw out all of the contractors that were doing parking, food service, cleaning, security, all that stuff, and they hired their own staff, paid them decent wages, gave them government benefits, and Patty, it's striking. It's striking the difference in these hospitals. And, you know, you see how clean it is, you see how proud these people are of their jobs, and it's amazing, really. It's just, you know what we're dealing with the Compass Group? I do, because I spent, of the last 3 years, I spent, 9 months in the health science and going through the parking lots and seeing like 7 parking lot attendants in one little parking lot. Like crazy stuff, and security guards everywhere and not doing anything. It's just nuts what they're doing. Whoever guy is a cop into your show there that keeps lambasting the Compass Group, I hope he keeps it up because it's what they're doing up here is so much better. Just so much better. And the staff wear appropriate uniforms, and it's really. It's just, I don't know, it's just striking. It's striking, the difference.
I'm going to hop in here and say the striking difference. Hopefully we can adopt it. And good luck with the trial. I wish you the best, Dwayne. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Patty, for taking the call.
My pleasure. All the best. Bye-bye.
Yep.
All right, let's get a break. And those of you in the queue, stay right there. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 3. Gail, you're on the air.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, how about you?
I'm good. I just had something to say about somebody that had something about domestic violence there a little while ago.
Okay.
I just came back after being away for 25 years. I was arrested not too long ago for domestic violence after somebody reported me for domestic violence, and it was a neighbor actually, who overheard me and my husband arguing. And I got arrested, and he got arrested, and the cops said, I can't arrest one without the other. And I was on my property, and we were like cutting brush and everything after 25 years with cherry trees and everything. And I had like scratches and bruises, and it was like 35 degrees, and it was like whatever. And there was no bruises on me from him, and there was no bruises on him from me. But we were like screaming because it was like mosquitoes everywhere. And it was hot. So, but the cops, she just like, so how is that relevant? Like the cops said, I can't arrest you without him.
Well, I really don't know the circumstances of what we're talking about, to be honest with you, Gail, so I don't think I can possibly answer that question.
No, exactly. So there was nothing. So domestic violence. So how do you exactly? That's exactly what I'm saying. How do you, like, if somebody says, like, you have to go and investigate this, and then the cops show up, and it's like you have bruises and scratches, and the cops are like, okay, well, I see the bruises and scratches, so I'm going to arrest both of you.
And so, what are you being charged with?
Assault. Just because somebody else says, I hear somebody screaming and yelling, how is that assault?
I don't know. So you and your husband are both being charged with the same crime, assault?
Yes, because you can't take one without the other.
Yeah, I didn't know that was ever a thing, because if someone's on the receiving end, they don't necessarily get charged with an assault if they're being assaulted.
Well, apparently it is.
And so when was this?
That was back in July. And we just came home from Alberta, and we were clearing the brush and everything on my property, and we were like, you know, scratches and bruises and everything because there was cherry trees and everything. Like, we were knee-high in friggin' bog and like 25 years of friggin' trees. Yep. And bang, bang, bang comes the knock on the door. And it's like, oh, yeah, we're here. Cops comes in. Yep.
Okay, so I don't know the ins and outs of this, but does it require you wanting to continue to press charges against him and vice versa for the assault charges to proceed, or the police have the authority to lay them without anybody pressing charges?
No, apparently the police have the authority to charge both of us.
Okay,
so when did that come? When did that become a...
I'm not really sure. I don't deal with the police very often, thankfully. But I can find out. I mean, I know who to ask.
Well, I know who to ask because I'm in like...
What did your lawyer say?
Well, I have to go through with it. Like, it is. The RCMP have the right to do whatever they want to do now. Thanks to Justin Trudeau.
What?
Yeah, the cops can do whatever they want to do. They can pull you over for no reason. They can do whatever they want.
Because of Justin Trudeau?
Well, apparently. He gives the RCMP the right to do whatever the hell they want.
I don't think that's the case. But I know who to ask, and I know who to ask about timelines for if and when anything has changed in the recent past about the RCMP's ability to lay charges without someone filing a complaint and seeing the charges be laid. So I know who to ask, and I can try to figure it out. So do you have a court date?
Oh, yeah. I've been to court twice, and I have a lawyer, and I'm still like, yeah, go ahead. But, yeah, the cops can do whatever the hell they fucking want.
Oh, well, the F-bomb is a goodbye. All right, let's take a break. I know even when you get frustrated and what have you, we really got to watch the F-bombs because they can sneak out very quickly while Dave is trying to get organized and all the rest of it. So let's try to be mindful of that. Those of you in the queue, you stay right there. We're coming right back after the newscast. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Elizabeth. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir. Elizabeth Calm here from Sunnyside.
Okay.
I was investigating about the homes, and a lot of people is telling me that you have to sell your house before you would be accepted for the homes, senior homes. I've asked several people. Some says it's right and some says it's not right. So I was wondering if you could guide me to somewhere that I could phone, like, to find out, the rights of it?
Sure. If you deal directly with NL Health Services, there's an actual application process which includes a community health nurse or social worker gives you an assessment. They have all the answers. You need a medical form completed by a doctor and a chest x-ray so they can be deemed what level of care is appropriate for you. But I don't think you have to sell your own home, because just say, for instance, if you are wanting to or needing to go into a home, but your husband didn't, or your kids still lived at home, you don't have to kick them out so you can go to a home. As far as I understand.
Oh no, I wouldn't have to do that, because I'm here on my own anyway, and I soon be 85 years old, and I mean, I'm trying to find out if that's right. So if that would be right, that you'd have to sell your home, where it's just myself, well, I wouldn't get into a home. I wouldn't be accepted if that's true what they're saying.
I'm trying to dig you up a number here. 1 second. It sounds kind of convoluted to me. It's the first I've ever heard of it. I didn't know if it was an actual thing. Okay, no. You do not have to sell your home to be admitted to a personal care home in Newfoundland. The admission part of me is based on assessed care needs, not your assets. So the basic answer is no. I will give you a number here now where you can call and get the ball rolling. For this, let's see here. Community Support Program. Of course, now there's no bloody number. Of course, they just make everything so difficult online. But you basically just have to go right through NL Health Services, get in touch with the community nurse or a social worker. That's the beginning of the process, and you do not have to sell your home.
Oh, very good. That sounds good to me, sir. Well, I didn't know who else to contact, but like I said, I'm in on the Newfoundland Health program in Clarenville, right?
Okay.
So I've got an appointment now with the doctor on Thursday, so I'm going to go by it with him. I guess that would be good, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
The doctor or the health nurse, whatever.
Yeah, it's community health nurse or a social worker is next steps for this process.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Yeah, well, thank you, sir, for your information.
Happy to do it.
And you have a good day, sir.
The same to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're
Bye.
welcome, Elizabeth. Bye-bye. Yeah, so that's the process, but I'll add to it is when things change, as they inevitably do, don't hesitate to ask for yet another assessment if and when you're feeling better or you're feeling worse or whatever the case may be, but that's where it starts. Let's go to line number 4. Gary, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. I'm a living example. I live in a senior's retirement home, and I didn't have to sell my house. So you gave her correct information. She don't have to sell her house.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, so anyhow, last week in the House of Commons, I think it was Thursday, I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget it, because I thought it was so important. I wanted to call you on Friday, but Dave, he said we try to have you on maybe once a week so everybody has a chance. So I understand that, so that's good. So last week, talk in the House of Commons, I'm pretty sure this was on Thursday. Now, I don't know who brought it up, which side of the House brought it up, but the Liberal government want to pass a bill to ban members of armed forces from praying. And I put question mark. From praying? That's ludicrous. Telling the people they can't pray to. I mean, that's sickening.
Yeah.
I don't understand this. Pass a bill to ban armed forces from praying, because it was spoke of quite a bit during their debate during the House of Commons. And so, that's a slap in the face of all the members that went and fought for us in the Second World War to give us the freedoms of doing stuff we have now. One thing, ban them for praying. I don't believe that. So I formed my member of Parliament, and I passed my concerns on to them. So that's what I suggest. Keep an eye on what's happening in the news in the House of Commons, and maybe get a hold. If you can get hold of Tim Powers, maybe he knows more about it.
Yeah, okay, here's what I know about it. This was all the rage, insofar as conversation went, last November, leading into Remembrance Day, is that people were told that there won't be any prayers at Remembrance Day, and it didn't turn out to be true. true. And I don't even think they're actually debating a piece of legislation. There was a directive given from the Department of National Defence to the ministers, the members of the clergy in the military, and it wasn't about you can't pray. I think they just took the word prayer out and put in spiritual reflection so that everybody, regardless of their faith or how they conduct their faith, was able to do exactly that. So I don't think I've ever seen a piece of legislation that says it, but it was a directive from the Department of National Defence to just change the wording. So, like last November the 11th, there were prayers, and people were trying to tell me that they weren't allowed and it's never going to be happening again. And it wasn't legislation. It was a directive from the Department of National Defence itself. So someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I remember that, because last fall, there was a lot of talk about that, and I searched the white paper for legislation and couldn't find it. Then I was told the Department of National Defence did it, which doesn't require legislation because, the chain of command. Here's what you need to do, coming from the minister and the generals and the admirals and anybody else that puts it, you know how the hierarchy works in the military. So that's the basics of how I understand it, is they simply took out the word prayer and replaced it with spiritual reflection so that people who don't pray will have the ability to do whatever, as opposed to everyone in the rank and file has to pray to some entity that they maybe don't believe in. So I think that's all that happened, Gary, to be honest with you.
Well, I hope so. I hope, because I understand what you're saying, and I hope I understand it correctly, because I thought, to me, the way I took it off the bat, that hit me, I thought, that's basically telling people the way I understood them in the floor there, because they get pretty hot-tempered in the House of Commons. Holy mackerel, it's like a war zone in there sometimes. The verbal comments back and forth between all the parties there. Holy mackerel! But anyhow, I think you cleared it up for me. So because I'm a person of prayer. I pray all the time, Patty. And I thought if that's true, then you can't legislate people from praying. Nobody can.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that's actually happened. I mean, certainly last fall when this was being discussed, I tried to figure it out. I couldn't find anything on the white paper regarding legislation. Then did go through the Department of National Defence to be told that's what has happened. Went to a November 11th Remembrance Day ceremony, and there was prayer. So I don't know if anything's really changed other than that. Move one word out and put in two to replace it, from prayer to spiritual reflections. That's what we found out last year. If anything has changed since, then someone should fill me in, but not that I know of and not that I've seen, Gary.
Yeah, so nobody, because that's like, I'm glad you put it that way, because all I did then after I wrote that down, I phoned my member of Parliament to voice my concerns, so if they can find something out for me, then I hope they maybe they can fill you in too. I'm going to ask them if they find out, like my writing is Clifford Small, and if he finds out, I mean, he can fill you in what was said in the House of Commons there, or Tim Powers. Tim Powers in Ottawa, so Tim Powers might be the best person to fill us all in, to just get some clarity. Like the way you shared it for me this morning, I thought, oh man, I got a sigh of relief now. The holy mackerel, because there's no way I want any government passing legislation that you can't pray.
And people talk about taking religion out of schools and all those types of things. But again, if I am not, I'll be bluntly honest, I don't watch a whole lot of the proceedings in Parliament because I find it to be more frustrating than informative. To be bluntly honest with you, but that's how I understand how this is all unfolded, Gary. And guarantee you, if I'm wrong, I will be told so in no uncertain terms, which is fine. We just want the accurate information out there. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Yeah, and I believe that way too. Because if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I believe in that. I owe up. If I'm wrong about something, I owe up to it right away. That's one thing that you and I have in common is we have the strong belief. You hear things and your perception of something is a certain way. I mean, we don't have to agree on everything either. I mean, that's okay. But when we do agree, it's wonderful. That's how we get we get to talk to each other too. So, because you and I are on the same page with the Toronto Blue Jays, we enjoy the game of baseball just for the sake of it's the Blue Jays. We enjoy it. It takes us away from all this other stuff for a short period of time. That's what I love about baseball too. So anyhow, you have a wonderful day, and Patty, keep praying. Okay, I'm going to keep praying too.
Fair enough, Gary. Appreciate your time.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Let's see here. Let's get into the break. When we come back, Jody's got a concern regarding a couple of, I guess, potentially vicious dogs. Kimberly's got to throw around a couple of bouquets, and then whatever you want to talk about right after this. Welcome back. Let's go line number 6. Good morning, Kimberly. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Great today. Thank you. How about you?
I'm doing good. I just wanted to call in, and I wanted to give a shout-out to some people. And one of those people would be Ruth McDonald. She is in Tom Osborne's office.
Okay.
I'm not sure, Patty, if you remember, I called in because I had exhausted all my avenues with the CRA in regards to the child tax benefit for my grandsons.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, you put me in contact with Tom Osborne's office, and anyway, this lovely lady, God love her heart, I don't have a vehicle, and I have my grandsons all the time, and anyways, she took it upon herself to come right to my house, fill out an affidavit giving her the right to go into the CRA and check out my account and see exactly why they had denied me my grandsons their child tax benefits. So anyway, she got in there and she did her thing and she did her magic, and God love her, she got me my money. And I was so happy when she called me and told me, she said, like, we got everything straightened out. And she said, your money is basically in the mail. And I said, well, thank you very much. And it took one call. And it took one call to the government. And the government took care of it. And Paddy, it wasn't in elections. It had nothing to do with anything like that, because this came to me after. Right? They worked on this, and it was a lovely thing. It was wonderful, because I was having trouble with them. They kept telling me, oh, we can't read your documents. We can't see your documents. You got to send it back in. And they just kept giving me the runaround. And finally, this lovely lady, Ruth McDonald, I want to thank her, and I want to thank her on open line.
Well, I'm glad she got it done for you, because you and I have back and forth with messages, and of course you called the program. It really felt like you had done everything you were asked to do, and there should be no hold up in eligibility. So obviously some communication breakdown in the system, I assume.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, for me not to be able to talk to somebody in the CRA, and for them to be able to say to me, well, we can only see notes. Like, where's all the documents that I sent? Like, you should be able to read them back to me and say, yes, we got this, we got that, everything is there. But no, nobody could ever give me any information. But anyway, I'm going to jump forward now. And that lovely lady, Ruth McDonald, she was a part of this community that I live in, Buckmaster Circle.
Okay.
She worked at the community centre for many years, apparently, I was told. And she was a lovely lady. I said, so it was ironic that I met her. And anyway, I called in there last week about the needle disposal down in back of Buckmaster Circle. And anyways, Paddy, I got off the phone, and Newfoundland Labrador Housing was there. They had contractors there. They were cleaning up. I went down and I had a little word with one of the guys, the contractors, and he said to me, my dear, don't worry about it, anything like that, call it in. We'll get on it as soon as possible. So they were pretty quick. They jumped on everything and they got everything out of there. And I mean, I myself personally, I would appreciate it if people would not come into our community and do that.
Yeah, because that was ridiculous to begin with. So two good updates there.
Somewhere.
Yeah, well, I'm pleased that they're two positive updates. Thanks for doing it, Kimberly.
Yes, and thank you for your time, Paddy. I greatly appreciate you as well. You're a great man.
Anytime. Stay in touch.
All right, thank you, honey. Have
Welcome.
a great day.
All right, you too.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it kind of feels like just sloughing people off. Say, well, get someone's constituency assistant to dig into it for you. But in all fairness, people working in the MHA's offices, in the Member of Parliament's office, they're equipped to do this bit of legwork for you, especially when you've jumped through all the hoops and you've been on the phone and you went and got this form, you went and got that form. When you've done what you've been asked to do, the ball really does belong in their court. So that's not only, say, Service Canada or CRA, but it's also in the court of the constituency assistant working for the Member of Parliament. And I'm glad that the lady took it on and got her settled. Let's go to line number 5. Jody, you're on the air.
Hi, good day, Patty.
Good day to you.
I'm calling. I'm still shook up. Monday, went for a walk with my friend in a very touristy area and was attacked by 2 dogs. These 2 dogs were unleashed, walking on their own in a big, not in a path, in a big parking lot area. And to me, I didn't kept looking to see was anybody coming behind them. And to me, those dogs are docile, the most docile animals you could find. They were 2 beagles. When we got alongside of them, they jumped us, snarling and growling and biting. I had to go get a tetanus shot. I had to run away and kick and scream, the 2 of us. We managed to get clear. I managed to jump down in the boulders and hide while the 2 dogs chased my other friend in the opposite direction. So that's why I'm using the word vicious, because they didn't just bite me on the ankle and run away. They were attacking us.
So you were bitten where they broke skin and drew blood?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
And but what's getting my goat the most is I could have had my grandson with me that day, because that's a place we go to. There's a very public place. It's a popular tourist attraction, and all the reporting to people I've gone to and authorities and everything, so he got attacked. That was it.
Yeah, well, it should be more than that. I mean, just think about it. And sometimes it depends on the breed, doesn't it? Because this had to be a story about a pit bull attacked you. Then the next time we hear that in the news, the pit bull is put down. A couple of beagles, well, who knows what happened. Look, it's not necessarily just the breed, it's the owner. Any type of dog can be made into a vicious little dog.
Oh, well, these dogs are hunting dogs, and that's exactly what they did. They hunted us. I don't know if they're old or they're getting senile or what's going on with them. But then again, contact with the owners and no return call. Contact RCMP. He told me I have to write out a report, and if they think it's serious enough, the owners would get a $50 fine. That's all the RCMP could do. Went to the town council, because in this area, I'm guilty too, that like years ago, don't walk this road or don't walk that road because there's saucy dogs up there. This area, they all know. And that's even sadder. And it's a big tourist. And then I started getting the bigger picture, like this all Newfoundland, all these tourist spots, all these little communities. What information do we know? And, you can't pass along it's going to happen to somebody else.
Are there any municipal bylaws regarding animals?
I called the town council, and they had to send me, currently they have no dog control policies or bylaws in that community. So I started digging. I've become an advocate now for dog control. When you Google for dog control, everything that comes up is for a dog owner and if 2 dogs attack each other. The human being is the last thing on the list.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things to that. I think it's called the Dog Owners Liability Act, I suppose. So, yeah. But in that, if it can be proven that the owner knew that, in this case, the 2 beagles had the propensity to be attacking or to be biting you, then they hold some civil liability, as far as I know. So
yeah, and I contacted 2 lawyers' offices, and they told me if it had to happen on their property, they'd have to take it on. If I had to been more severely injured, they would have taken it on. So I don't know. Or Liability Act. Well, another step I did, I went to the provincial court to fill out a form to get a provincial judge to intervene. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if I'll ever hear back from it, but that's done also.
Well, look, you don't even have to prove that there was any sort of negligence. All that has to be proven is that the owner understands. And it doesn't have to be on their property either. I don't know who told you that. That's my understanding of it anyway.
Yeah, but it's pretty sad. But so I just want to warn people, you know what, Patty, if I had to have a stick or if I had to have dog spray, I don't even think I could have reacted as fast as it happened.
Yikes. So listen, I would pursue that just a little bit more extensively here, because then it's not just about dogs attacking humans. It's dogs attacking dogs. It's dogs going after, livestock.
Exactly.
It could be an animal, a pet ripping up or damaging your own property. So there's lots inside the liability in that particular piece of legislation. So I don't think I'd let this go very easily.
No, I'm still shaken because I still see in my eyes in the summertime, I see the little kids there having picnics, the daycare's there, and just to no reaction from nobody.
Yeah. Listen, if you give this another bit of a chase, let me know, Jody, what happens. I'd be really interested.
Yes, I know. I'm hoping somebody will get back to me. I even called the Department of Tourism because I'm thinking, oh my God, busloads of people go here, right? What kind of protections do they have in place? None.
Well, there's provincial legislation, so that, at least that much is in place. So you let me know how this plays out, Jody. I'll be quite curious.
I certainly will. Thank you for listening, Patty.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
And, look, it doesn't matter what the animal is. Once you get, quote-unquote, attacked by a dog or a cat or a bird or whatever, that remains in your psyche into the future. That's not simple as soon as the beagle runs away, then never worry about that again, because that's just human nature, right? Let's see here. Let's get in the break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number one. Say good morning to former Crown prosecutor, Mike Murray. Mike, you're on the air.
Oh, yeah. Good morning, Patty.
Good morning. Before we get into the assault charge call, where was I on the Dog Owners Liability Act?
I'm not sure. I know something about the criminal code provisions and the Animal Health Protection Act, but I'm not familiar with the Dog Owners Liability Act at all.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so the lady called in this morning talking about domestic violence and stuff and how she got charged and her partner were both charged and she wasn't happy about the whole thing. I just thought I'd explain a little bit about how the process works. The first thing, I guess, is that the idea of the victim pressing charges or then even dropping charges, those are sort of American ideas that people pick up from TV. They don't really exist in Canadian law. So let's say you call the police. It could be a domestic violence case, could be any kind of case, and the police respond. They investigate, and if they think there are reasonable and probable grounds to believe an offense occurred and that it's in the public interest, they'll lay a charge. When it comes to domestic violence, police forces generally have a zero-tolerance policy. So if they believe that there was domestic violence, they'll probably go ahead and lay the charge no matter what the victim's wishes are, depending on the circumstances. So then the next thing, if the police lay a charge, then it goes to the Crown. At that point, once the charge has been laid, once the file has been forwarded to the Crown, then only the Crown can drop the charges. I mean, a court could find somebody not guilty, but in terms of like dropping the charges without going to trial or without going to court, that's totally up to the Crown once the charges have been laid. And they'll look at whether there's enough evidence and whether there's a public interest to proceed. So even if the victim doesn't want to proceed and you got a witness or you got video, then it's quite likely, especially in a domestic violence case, which will almost always be seen as in the public interest to go ahead, then the case is probably going to go ahead. In fact, in domestic violence cases, I'd say 80% of the cases have a letter from the victim. asking to drop charges. And I mean, the Crown will look at that, but they won't necessarily drop the charges if there's evidence enough to proceed. They'll look at how serious the case is. I mean, they'd be more likely to drop something where the victim got shoved in the course of an argument and everybody cooled down afterwards than they would if the victim ended up with a broken arm or put in the hospital. You know, look at a high-profile case a few months ago, this guy named Daniel Ozon. He was driving a car on Pitts Memorial and flipped it over 3 or 4 times. He left the victim gravely injured in the car and ran away. The witnesses said he was the driver. She tried to drop charges on several occasions. She actually came to court and testified that she was the driver. But the case proceeded. He was found guilty and he was sent to jail. So the victim can't just drop charges and the victim can't just press charges.
Fair enough. It's what I thought, but that's why I asked her as well. But the real confusing part of that call for me was, allegedly, the police officer said to them, "We have to arrest you both." Is that a thing?
Yeah, I think. I mean, in order for that to happen, there must have been some violent activity on behalf of both. You know, I don't know. Maybe she hit him with a frying pan, and he came back in the house and punched her in the nose. You know, it would have to be both people there would have been evidence that both people committed an offense to charge both. They don't do that as standard procedure in domestic violence cases.
Yeah, because, I mean, and like I said to her right off the top, I wasn't there. I don't know all the circumstances, so I don't have a whole lot to say.
I have no idea what actually happened.
Yeah. Strange state of affairs, though. And then it's the next, I'm trying to recall what that conversation sounded like. And then it's the bit about, you know, police can do whatever they want. And I think that was in reference to the ability for to pull a car over without any sort of quote-unquote probable cause, even though, once again, that's more law and order than it is crime and criminal justice in this system or in this country. So where do we stand on that? And I know things have changed. Even some weird stuff like, if someone, say, for instance, calls the police and say that they saw this vehicle, this license plate number, driving erratically, think they were drunk, things change there where they can actually come to your house. And I think it's like a little bit of time after you maybe arrived at home to pursue those types of potential charges. So give us an idea about that, pulling vehicles over and the drunk driving implications, those types of things.
Well, under the Highway Traffic Act, the police have the power to pull over any vehicle, whether there's a report of any kind of wrongdoing or not, to check your license and registration and sobriety, right? The idea is that driving is a highly regulated activity and the potential for public harm is great, so the police can check a car. You know, that's how, like, roadblocks work. They stop everybody who pulls up, not just the people, you know. As well, I mean, they can certainly take factors like a report of erratic driving, the fact that the car was seen leaving a bar parking lot at 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, when the officer is actually following the car, if he's got information, he doesn't necessarily need to see any wrongdoing himself. He just has to have a reasonable suspicion.
And what is that? I seem to remember, and I'm just trying to recall a bunch of things at once here. So if you were reported and your vehicle's identified as potentially driving erratic and possibly under the influence, how long do the police have to arrive at my home for further evaluation, whether it be roadside exam and or breathalyzer?
Oh, I think they can arrive at your house at any time, that they can locate your house and find it and track you down. I mean, then it'll depend on your interaction with the police at the door. You know, they'll often, when they're pulling into a driveway, put their hand on the hood to see if the engine has been running recently to make sure they got the right place. And, you know, when you show up at the door, if you're unsteady on your feet, then they're probably going to go on from there.
Yeah, it's one of those things, because the immediate pushback I remember on that front was, well, what happens if I was not drunk, I got home and had a couple of quick drinks, the police show up and all of a sudden I'm in cuffs? Yeah,
that's the legal term, well, for that is bolus drinking. And the suspicion of the police is going to be that people got home and had a couple of drinks in order to be able to say the reason I'm over 80 is because I was shook up because I was almost in an accident and I decided to have a few drinks when I got home. So there's a the way it works now is that if they get a breath sample or something, they'll do a read back of what your blood alcohol would have been at the time you were driving, and you'd have to be under at the time you were driving in order to walk away from that.
Fair ball. Always helpful information this morning, Mike. Oh, before we let you go, you instigated the issue regarding the St. John's Act and clauses 275 through 285, and then the city pushed back with what I thought was very much a splitting of hairs, saying things like...
I thought it was nonsense. I mean, the idea that the police that the city doesn't enforce criminal law. I mean, well, that's obvious. I mean, it's about, I think, about safe neighborhoods. I mean, since then, I heard a number of people call in, including Councillor Tom Davis, who thinks it needs to be given serious consideration.
Yeah, because they're saying, they can only deal with things like noise and garbage and disrepair and what have you. But no one suggested that a city bylaw officer that just got finished writing a ticket on Duckworth can break into a drug den and do anything about the criminal element. But it's the start of the process.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, most of the places that the neighbors are complaining about have exactly those problems: noise and garbage and disrepair, and boarded up windows and syringes around the sidewalk and on the front step, and there's people coming and going all hours of the night and screaming and bawling in the street. I mean, those are exactly the things that the city has the jurisdiction to deal with.
And for some reason don't, or at least don't do it as often as they could and should, in my estimation.
Yeah, no, I think that's how I see it too. But as well, I mean, in other provinces, like Saskatchewan has a Safe Neighborhoods Act. I forget the exact term of it. That's a piece of provincial legislation. And in fact, they're bringing it back before the legislature this fall to make it easier to get eviction notices and stuff like that. Then you wouldn't just be dealing with St. John's. I mean, if the province passed that legislation, I remember, I can't remember what rural community it was where people felt terrified and afraid to leave their houses because of a drug house up the street, and talking about constant thefts and noise and fighting and needles, the usual stuff. So, I mean, the province could pass legislation in that regard too.
Absolutely. I mean, because at every level of government, we talk about the public safety sentiment. Politicians lean in on it, but then don't take advantage of what's at their fingertips via legislation yet to be crafted or to be amended or to be applied. So, anyway.
The other part of that, too, is that, the sort of dirt and disorder in the streets is turning people against supportive housing and things like that are generally speaking good ideas. Mm-hmm. The fact that the people who might be running a supportive housing establishment and take the position that their responsibility ends at the front door. I mean, they're only shooting themselves and the people they're trying to help in the foot, because they're turning the public against these kind of things, shelters and supportive housing and stuff. They're actually turning the public against it by not taking a more proactive approach. I mean, if you run a supportive housing place or a shelter, why don't you have staff members go out and pick up needles in the morning?
It's a very good point, and it's very much, it's akin to even just overall conversations about controversial topics like whether it be supportive housing or what have you. Same as immigration, is we just put everyone in the exact same envelope and we treat them exactly the same, when that's never the case. So someone who's in supportive housing and there may or may not be a bad apple in and around there or a bad experience held by someone else in the neighborhood, all of a sudden all of those issues just create problems, when it's just not the case, and it really does make it difficult for a government to, quote unquote, enforce their own policies and messages when they can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, no, I think anybody in this sector that's trying to help addicts and stuff has to take seriously the public safety concerns if they want public support.
100%. I appreciate the time as usual, Mike. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, let's get to a break. When we come back, dementia care. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty, bear with me. I'm nervous, okay?
You take your time.
Okay. My husband has been at the health science now going on 3 months, over 3 months. Now it's going into the 3rd month. And he has Lewy body dementia. He got one-on-one security because of his actions with the nurses. And he got out Thursday night. He got on that elevator and walked out the door. And he was missing for 3 hours.
He was outside, or he was somewhere in the hospital?
Oh, no, he was outside. He got out.
Oh, man.
He went up Prince Philip Drive. He went up Thorburn Road. They found him on the Team Goodhue Outer Ring Road. And he fell. He cut his head open. He got stitches. And my concern was, how did he get out if he got 24 one-on-one security? 24/7 one-on-one security.
That's a good question.
I cannot figure that out. Now, I wrote my MHA, and my sons were out looking for him. The police, they had 5 units looking for him. And if this had been rush hour, you know what rush hour is like on Prince Philip Drive, and the Team Goodhue. They won't stop, and my husband's hard of hearing. It takes him longer to process things. And my concern is, was his safety.
Well, of course it is. So, to answer the question about where was his one-on-one attendant or security 24/7, isn't that something that people on the floor should be able to answer?
I didn't approach them with it. I did not approach. My concern was him at the time.
Right, and I guess, and of course, that would be my concern as well. Is my thoughts would be, someone on the floor must know exactly where that person was, whether it was something as, like, turned their back, went to the bathroom. Who know? Like, I don't know, but someone must have, looked into it by now to try to figure out an answer for you.
I don't even know if there's a report written up.
Really?
I don't know. I do not know. I do know the police have the case number. I got the case number there. And the police were excellent with him. The paramedics were excellent with him, even though he did kick up a fuss because he did not want to go back. And I did not approach anyone when I went in. I did not approach any of the staff about what happened.
Do you think you're going to? Because someone at the nurse's station...
I'm going to, yes.
Okay.
I'm going to, because well, first of all, we need more long-term care.
I agree.
We're into the baby boomers now. We've been into the baby boomers for 10 years. Ever since Danny Williams was premier. That's when the baby boomers started to go in. Now they should know now that we need more long-term care.
Especially secure wards, like for people with, whether it be Lewy body dementia or otherwise. I agree with you.
They should be. He needs to be into a lockdown, secure place, and yet be able to go outside and get a bit of fresh air. Prisoners go outside and get fresh air, but he's been in there over 2 months, and he don't go outside. He don't get no fresh air. He's like a caged animal.
This is heartbreaking. So
you don't do that to a dog. You'll be arrested.
It's atrocious. Just a quick call. So our question: the person who is responsible for care and security throughout the day, who is that person? Is it a nurse or an actual security guard, or who is this person?
Well, he'd have. I don't know.
Okay.
He has different security guards on him. Of course, they have their shifts, right?
Oh yes, of course.
But if he had to go to the washroom, he should have notified someone that he was leaving, and for the nurses to keep an eye on my husband.
Is his room door locked?
No, there's no locked doors there. He walked out according to what he was. I questioned him because he's hard of hearing, and I'm yelling, and people can hear me because he's ever a hard time hearing me. He told me that he just walked out. There was a lady came off the elevator, and he went on the elevator, went down, and walked out. Now, we were on the phone with the police, and my sons were out looking for him. It took them 2 hours before they called me to tell me he was missing. Now, if they had to call me around 10:30, this was that night. Now, this was Thursday night, and Friday morning the rain came down like crazy. So if they had to call me at 10:30, my sons would have been out there earlier, and they would have found him probably making the turn on Thorburn Road.
Well, in reality,
because he's always slow, and his walk is like he's not steady on his legs.
I understand. I mean, if there was going to be...
He went 6 kilometers.
Boy, oh boy. Had the security or the personal care attendant or whatever the case may be as alert as required, he wouldn't have got out the door. He might have got to the elevator, but wouldn't have got out of the hospital. So I'm really sorry to hear this. What I would appreciate is if you or one of your sons or what have you, if you can get some sort of answer from someone like the supervisor at the nurse's station or what have you, to just give you some idea what happened so that they know and they can shore it up so it doesn't happen again to your husband or anybody else.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons is so it don't happen to someone else. Now, they upped him on the list. They put him on, he was like 10th on the list. They upped him on the list now up to 1 or 2 or 3, whatever, right, to get him into long term.
Well, I hope that happens immediately, and I appreciate the time. I'm so sorry you went through this.
I notified my MHA.
Yep.
My son's notified his MHA, and I'm not letting this go, Patty.
Nor should you. I wouldn't.
He could have been killed.
Oh, boy. Please do follow up with the nurse station.
When he tripped up into the medium, he hit his head on the concrete there on Thorburn Road. And that's when he got the gash. He got 8 stitches in his head. And he could have went down harder. He could have killed himself.
I'm so sorry this happened, and I'm really pleased to hear that you're not letting this go. And I'd like to get an update from you or your sons whenever it's convenient for you.
Okay, thank you, Patty.
You take good care.
You too.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye. Now, I mean, stuff like that shouldn't happen, right? And you know what? It happens probably more often than we realize. I mean, there's a friend of ours, mine and Dave, who was supposed to be under careful watch and got out, and we won't finish that story, but yeah, I mean, it's amazing that she's talking about we need more opportunities in long-term care, secure wards, what have you. We talked about exactly that last week. The numbers are crystal clear. They're right in front of us. The forecast amount of Alzheimer's and dementia to be diagnosed in this country by 2050 sees a 187% increase. Are we prepared today? Probably not. Let's get a break for the news. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. John, you're on the air.
How you doing, Patty?
Okay, how about you?
Oh, not too bad. I was just listening to VOCM in the mornings as I usually do, but the assault call you had there, it's been about 10 years. I was assaulted by my ex-wife at the time, and the 2 female officers showed up. I mean, she hit me 3 times. She struck me one more time. I would charge her. But there was nothing ever happened to that. I got a ringing ear for the last over 10 years now. Is there any recourse that you know of. Talked to a few people. Nobody seems to be interested in any of that, you know?
What do you mean by recourse, John?
Well, to go back, I mean, I guess it's just too much time gone, I suppose, right? I mean, assault's assault. I mean, I didn't lift a hand or anything. It just, I came home late. He was in a rage, so tried to ignore it, but, you know, that's it. Just listening to some of the callers, right?
Yeah, if I can point you in an appropriate direction, I'm happy to do it. But when you talk about recourse, is it for the charges that were or were not laid, or for the injuries that were suffered?
Yeah. No, exactly. The charges that were not laid, right?
Well, there's a civilian complaints, I'll call it department, at the RNC.
Okay.
For one, I mean, that's something that you can do. I don't know how successful people are when they go down that path, but that is something that's there.
Right.
Let's see if I can get you a contact.
Yeah, that'd be great. It just seems like, you know, yeah, I'll leave it at that. No, appreciate it. It just nowhere to turn. I mean, I ran out of money with the lawyers. They weren't too interested in that time, right, at that time.
Yeah, so it's called the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary Public Complaints Commission. So let's see if they actually have a number. You can do it online, or you can do it at the RNC's specific division here. Let's see if they actually give me a telephone number, which is always very helpful. They don't. But what I can tell you is if you simply Google RNC Complaints Division, it'll bring you directly to it, and you can follow through. Oh, there's a contact us. Okay, here we go. I got a phone number for you.
No, appreciate it. No, I can dig into that, buddy. No, that's perfect.
Yeah, no sweat. That quick Google of those words will get you directly to the page, just like it got me. So just put in RNC Public Complaints Commission.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Keep her going. Thanks,
buddy. You're welcome. Bye-bye. Yeah, so we're nudging up close to the break. So for the callers there to talk about the response to the dementia patient call, happy to take it. There's another caller who wants to talk about the MOU, which we need to continue to talk about it. I do take a few swats when I bring up things like time and whether or not it's of the essence, which I think it is. You know, so yes, there's a lot of people applauding, and look no further than the election results, which weren't simply around the MOU. There's lots of people have different opinions as what was their priority. Healthcare, access to primary care, cost of living, crime and punishment, public safety, MOU, and whatever else. Maybe the fairies that were pledged by Mr. Wakeham. But I do think we do need some answers there pretty soon about an independent review, number one, which I think the consensus is that's probably a good idea. Maybe not so much when we talk about the referendum, but when are we doing that? What kind of timeline are we going to give for an organization, whoever that might be, to conduct an independent review? It will be tricky to come up with someone with the experience in utilities and power generation and contracts and 50-year time frames and all the risks associated with liabilities and borrowing for the eventual definitive contracts of this magnitude that does not have any conflict. I mean, that's going to be a tricky piece of business. Hydro is a massive organization, and so they would have likely incorporated the consultant work and or a lender and or whatever the case may be with a bunch of the biggest companies in North America. But we'll see where that goes. But, time, I think that's a reasonable question as to where we are, when do we expect to take next steps, and what do they involve. That's it. Let's check in on the Twitter box. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, the MOU, response to the dementia patient call, and then whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Caller, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, the Liberals didn't mention it, and I see the PCs is not talking about it. Why don't they use some of that extra $1 billion that's coming to us from Quebec if that MOU is signed, actually a contract? Why don't they use some of that to bring down the hydro bills in Newfoundland?
There's no good reason why. I mean, we've asked this question directly of those, well, I guess they were Liberal members at the time after the MOU, because the $1 billion on average between now and 2041, it comes in straight to the government treasury coffers. It hasn't been earmarked for anything. So I asked specific questions like, would it be, would we be told that every cent would be used for debt, deficit, and hydro rates? Because those are the three areas where we really got to focus that money if it ever comes to pass. I agree.
Yes, sure, because we do have very high hydro rates. There's still seniors turning down their thermostat and going out and walking around all malls, to keep warm during the day, and that's not good enough. And they say, which is out and out lie, that we got the cheapest hydro rates in Canada. That's not true. I got family in New Brunswick. I got friends in Nova Scotia, and I've seen their hydro bills, and there's nothing compared to ours. Nova Scotia gets billed. Their residents gets billed every 2 months, and their 2 months bill is around the same as our 1 month bill there. So hydro is out and out lying when they says we got the cheapest rates in Canada. We fall very short on that.
Yeah, so we're somewhere in the middle, truth be known. And it's hard to compare apples to oranges, too, because different provinces have different rules with things like net metering and time of day usage and that kind of stuff. So it is a bit tricky to do direct comparisons, but we're in and around the middle somewhere. Yeah.
Well, I know we're not the cheapest. But anyway, yeah, and 5-10% is not going to do it. Like a $400 light bill or hydro bill is you save $20. That's not going to cut it. It's going to have to be a bigger percentage than that.
Yeah, but just think about it. We're talking about billions of dollars that's going to be used to keep the rates at 14.273 cents plus the fees, with a predictable 2.25% increase every single year by 2030, and then no plan. And no money and no understanding about what it's going to look like after 2030, which should give people reason for concern.
Oh, of course, and that's all I wanted to call in about this morning. I don't hear anything on that at all, and I was wondering why they're not saying, like you say, they don't have that money earmarked for anything. So, before that contract is signed, if it actually gets signed, then they could work that into the contract. There's so much, a percentage of it to go towards our hydro bills.
Yeah, I don't know if it can find a home in a contract with Hydro-Quebec. It could find its home in a political contract with us voters, us ratepayers, because they're going to have to tell us what they're going to do with the money. If it's just money coming in and they'll spend it as they see fit, well, buddy, I don't think we're going to get much relief on our debt or deficit or hydro rates.
No, and if it goes to a referendum, the people is not going to not going to vote yes for it. If no matter how good it is, if there's nothing coming back that we can see that they're actually doing with the money, that's going to be a no vote right there. So I would suggest that if the PCs are serious about getting this contract signed, that they try to get something done or put in place that will decrease our hydro bills a little bit anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get an argument from me, and I've put those very specific questions to then Liberal cabinet ministers, including the Minister of Finance, or then Minister of Finance, Siobhan Cody, and I can't recall now if we had then Premier Fury on the show shortly after the MOU. I think we did, and I think that might have been one of the very first questions I asked him, because I'm always concerned when it's just, saying we're going to get on average $1 billion, but it's what you do with the $1 billion. You can, I almost said piss it away. You can spend it incorrectly or not. You can apply it to things that matter to most or not. So it's a good question that you're asking.
Yes, and I missed that show with Fury on there. What did he say in answer to your question when you asked him about what are you going to do something with the hydro bill?
I think how I asked it was, would we commit, or would the government commit to every cent coming in to be applied to debt, deficit, and hydro rates? And the basic answer was yes. But now he's gone. So what he said then doesn't count anymore. The only person that counts, if we make it to the contract stage, would be Tony Wakeham. So that's a question that we'll have to ask him directly.
Yeah, that's true. Well, anyway, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I just wanted to put it out there. Maybe we'll get some chat around it.
I'm glad you called. Thank you.
Have a good day, Patty.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I mean, they are good questions. And, of course, we're talking about a non-binding memorandum of understanding, which is very high-level stuff. But things like, how the money is spent, that would be strictly a political decision made in this province, same as it would be strictly a decision made in the province of Quebec. All right, Chair, let's keep rolling. Let's go to line number 4. Caller, you are on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning.
I was listening to the lady that called in about her husband. Was it her husband that escaped from the hospital?
That's right. Hello? Okay, let's get her back. I didn't touch anything. I rarely do. Let's see here. Oh, very quickly, let's go line number 2. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello.
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 Yep.
Hi, Patty. How are you today?
Very well. How about you?
Good. I'm just calling about a CYS situation here I have with my grandchildren.
Okay.
They're living with their father right now. They're residing with their father, but they're supposed to be with their mom. We've been going through courts, CYSF, the police. I've been after calling everybody, but I can't seem to get no headway. We went to court in September with the father and the mother. He was supposed to give the children back, visitation rights for so many days, and then the kids would reside back with their mom, but that hasn't happened. He's not abiding by none of the rules that the courts has given him. Every time the judge would rule something, he'd disobey the actions that the judge has given him. So what do we do? We did all the red tape. We went through everything, the right steps. What do we do next to get our children back? They've been gone since April.
Were you represented by legal aid or a private family law lawyer?
It was a legal aid lawyer.
Okay. They should have put you on to the next step. So resolution dispute and questions about enforcement of court rulings. There's something called the Family Justice Services. So
yes.
Were you put on to them?
Nope.
Well, that's the next one. There are so-called, what's the right way to put it? A mediator or a neutral third party, I'll say. But if you get assigned to someone at Family Justice Services, they'll be able to talk about enforcement of court rulings. They'll be able to talk about outside of court resolution mechanisms that might be available as well.
Okay, do you have the number for them?
I don't.
What did you say it's called again?
Family Justice Services.
Justice Services. And another thing I want to ask you a question about. If you broke a court order, what happens?
Depends. I don't think there's an easy answer to that question. Because, I mean, it's one thing if we're talking about court order in a divorce versus custody of children or the division of assets. So I don't think I can answer that one without a very, very specific question to be asked. But, yeah. Bottom line, I can't answer it.
It just seems like the system is failing everybody with CYSF. It's ridiculous.
Family court is as emotional as any courtroom or courthouse in the country. I just did on my phone have a very quick look to see if I get you a contact number. I have one for St. John's, if that's appropriate.
Perfect. 1 second now. I'll write it down. I mean, this has been going on since April.
I understand.
It's long enough now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's time to bring our children back to our home where they belong.
I understand. And as usual, I have no idea the circumstances, so I won't try to dig into your personal details. Pardon?
Because I would love to tell you what was going on in this situation. It would blow the province's mind what is actually really going on. But I can't say that, obviously, because I'm not getting in trouble. So what is the number, Patty?
729 1183.
1183.
Yeah.
All right. Like I said, I'd love to get into big details with you, But like I said, it can cause a lot of trouble for me, even though I'm speaking the truth. But I will get justice for my grandchildren. I can see I will. But like I said, it's taken a long time for them to step up to the plate. And if you broke a court order 4 or 5 times, you should be hollering right away, as far as I'm concerned. Not let go and just, we'll deal with that whenever. They're children you're dealing with. They're not, they're not dogs. You wouldn't even do that to a dog.
Yeah, I mean, they're not chattel in a real estate transaction. I get it. Listen, keep me in the loop. Just drop me a very quick update note as to whether or not you had any luck there. If not, I'll see if I can figure out something else for you, but I wish you good luck.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome. Take care.
Okay, you too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, man. Family court has got to be brutal. I mean, the stories we hear... just take this for what it's worth. It's not a complaint. It's just an observation. What you hear on the show is the literal tip of the iceberg for the stuff we hear and the stuff I read and the things people ask me about. Some of it is just mind-bogglingly sad. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're talking big projects, and there's the callers thankfully back in the queue to talk about, or I guess to give us a response to the call we had about the poor man who's dealing with Lewy body dementia, managed to get out of the hospital, even though it was supposed to be supervised 24/7 and cared for 24/7. Terrible story. Let's take a break. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 1. Russell, you're on the air.
Hey, Patty. I just had, I've been listening to the program all week, and there's a couple of comments that come in there that I'd like to just comment on.
Sure.
Concerning, say, the deal with Quebec Hydro, according to, say, the new premier, that's a dead deal, right? And then, we got, say, an underground cable running from underwater. Is that what they call a submarine cable?
I just want to make sure we're on the same page here. Number one, Tony Wickham hasn't said the MOU is dead. He says he's going to send it for review.
He's going to have a referendum, and as far as I'm concerned, 95% of the people in Newfoundland and Labrador can comment on this, the new documents that comes from someone else. With proper money going to Newfoundland and Labrador, and out come that cable was run inside Canada and not down to New York. That's another question.
Okay, so are we talking about the maritime link that goes from this province to Cape Breton or Nova Scotia?
Yeah. Outcome was run right down to New York.
Because we didn't build it.
That's my question.
Yeah, that wasn't us. That was Nova Scotia Power. That was Emera. So they built that to get their own power for Nova Scotia. So that's why it goes from here to Nova Scotia.
Okay, but why can it not run directly if someone else does it?
Nobody said it can't.
Right, okay. Yeah. And then I really question why they ran from overhead cables right from Muscat Falls instead of going down the water with what he called submarine cables.
So across the Labrador Strait?
Yeah, and down.
Well, I guess
they run them. They run them, say, from New York over to Greenwich, England, and other places.
Anything can be done. I mean, there's fiber optic cables right across the Atlantic Ocean as well. So, yeah, I mean, there's lots of cables down there. Part of it is a cost, and some of it is, like, for instance, in the Labrador Strait, it's iceberg scour. So there's lots of things to be considered in the Strait that wouldn't be the same concerns in many parts of the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Now, the other thing I was wondering about, what else was on my mind? Yeah, like I said, to me, 95% of people could vote on a new company that proposes something that's reasonable to Newfoundland and Labrador. And in my opinion, the connection between Hydro-Quebec, Nalcor, and it's problematic. They're lining their own pockets.
Who are we talking about lining their own pockets?
Nalcor, Quebec Hydro, and the crowd in Nova Scotia that's involved with the project. I don't see the logic of going into Canada with those underground marine, submarine cables.
Well, the only place you would build a cable is to whoever's going to buy the power on a secured power purchase agreement that gives you some certainty into the future.
Yeah, and that would be, say, a very large company in North America purchasing direct, and Hydro-Quebec got nothing to do with it.
So,
yeah, just my opinion, Danny.
I'm glad you shared it. So, just from where I sit, like for instance, if we're talking about the Upper Churchill, we have a long-standing contractual agreement with the province of Quebec that extends past 41. As it pertains to Gull Island, if they're going to build it, then of course and that's one of the concerns people have, is that Hydro-Quebec and the province of Quebec retain all the authority and all the decision-making authority at Gull Island, which includes where the power goes. So that's one of the problems people point to. I understand.
That's just because we got cancelled that deal, and go to the contract that exists, and do not do nothing with the Upper Churchill. Let someone else buy the extra power.
Well, there's
just my opinion,
and fair enough. But there are, like, we're bound by a contract until 2041 about who gets how much and for how much they're going to pay. So that's that part of it. Post 41, if the argument is
we let that deal go to that date, and we deal with someone else.
Well, even if you wait till 41, it doesn't give you an opportunity to deal with anyone else necessarily, because all that happens in 41 is a renegotiation of rates and some things regarding water and stuff. But Hydro-Quebec's still in the picture. They don't go anywhere.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, they're there, but they're no longer in the rest of the development. And they're no longer in control of our resources, and we make the money.
Making the money is the trick here, isn't it? You know, the customer for me is not the big problem. Like, if someone's going to pay me 5 cents or 8 cents or 12 cents, supposing it's Hydro-Quebec or the state of Maine or the New York City, like, I don't really care. Well, I guess I do, based on how much it costs to get there. Yeah, I should include that.
So that's just my comments.
I'm glad you made them, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Yeah, of course, I got to include, I mean, how much it costs to get the power to market is part of the overall profitability of said power purchase agreement, right? Of course it is. All right, let's keep going. Line number 2. Jennifer, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you.
I am a first-time caller, and I guess I want to start by saying I'm a nurse within NL Health Services, and I have the greatest respect for NL Health Services and I guess the issues that we're facing right now. But when things start out on a more personal level, well then there comes a point where I have to speak. And what I want to speak about this morning is placement services within Eastern Health Umbrella for cottage placement for seniors. And I guess the struggles that I have faced with every pen I put to paper, there's an issue. My issue right now is we have been through placement services. I have the application process completed for my mom, which was not easy. From CRA to the assessment, it was just chaotic. My mother has now, at 80 years old, been approved for cottage placement. She is in the queue. Where she is in the queue is a secret. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. Whether she's number 1 or number 10. However, Premier Wakeham's platform clearly talked of building more cottages for seniors. The cottages are there. They're not, the ones that are there, Patty, are not even being utilized. In the Placentia district, where I need a cottage for my mother, there are 2 cottages. One has been vacant for over 6 months. Here's the reason. Those cottages are within the hospital and the long-term care facility. So the expectation is that utility and maintenance workers within that whole department need to do the repairs on those cottages. That is impossible. It's ludicrous. There is one carpenter. There is one electrician. There is one plumber. They are off on Saturday and Sunday. When they return on Monday, they have clogged toilets. They have broken beds. They have water issues. There's a multitude of issues. How is it possible for them to get up to repair a cottage? And needless to say, a cottage that is only, 300, 350 square feet? It's impossible to do. I guess my issue is you're in the queue for a cottage. You don't know where you're to in the queue. Placement Services is down at PVT. I have been there. The door is locked. You're not even allowed in there to ask a question. Someone comes out and asks you, what's your question? So I don't know where to go. All I know is I need to work. My mother needs a place to live. She lives in a place where there's no store. She is at least 20 miles from a store. She doesn't drive. My dad dies. Where do I go?
It's a good question. Let me ask you one. So, insofar as where someone might be on the wait list, are there any different components of this, like maybe level of care, mobility issues, if you're single, if you're a couple? Is that all factored into how the wait list is crafted?
So you need to be single, and then there's an assessment done by a social worker, which I will say ran smoothly. I guess we're told you're in the queue. But what number are you? Are you number 10 for a cottage, or are you number 1? I think it's really unfair to do this to seniors, but not let them know. So where do you go in the meantime? Where do you live? You know, my mom is back and forth. I'm back and forth with my mom, which has totally impeded what I can do as a nurse. How do I work when my mother is struggling as an individual?
Good question.
How do I apply for somewhere else, not even knowing if she's top of the list for Placentia? Like, why all the secrecy, and why expect? And my biggest issue is the utility workers. I work in an area very close to seniors' care. They are not capable of doing those repairs. They do not have the manpower to do them. I've contacted Mr. Wakeham. Mr. Wakeham was actually, I've contacted everyone. I've emailed Placement Services, no response. I've emailed Eastern Health, Dr. Pat Parfrey, no response. The only one that did respond was Mr. Wakeham, who said, Jennifer, we're in a change of government. I get that. I do get that. However, Eastern Health has the authority to make decisions based on what seniors need. I mean, we're not talking days here. We're not talking weeks. We're talking 6 months for a 300-foot cottage that a senior lived in.
Yeah, and then, you know, when I hear answers to questions being offered as, well, the government is transitioning, we get that. It's the political transition. Healthcare didn't stop. NL Health Services didn't stop. So I know you know the system. So, you know, whether it be client relations, which it used to be at Eastern Health, say, for instance, which would still be covering Placentia and area. So client relations might be able to give you some direction as to how you can ascertain where your mother might be on the wait list. I don't know, but I can't even think.
Client relations already emailed email, Patty, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but already done. Client relations, placement services, Tony Wakeham, MHA, who I will say, although sitting now on the wrong side of the government, Sherry Gambon Walsh did respond to me. Tony Wakeham did respond to me. But in terms of Eastern Health being accountable, they are not responding. They refuse to respond.
It's not even a difficult question. I mean, even if there was an answer that said, here's why we don't disclose where people are on wait list. Because if it's something changes, you might be number 10 today, but call next week and find out you're number 12 because things change in the social work assessments. But then at least you'd know.
Exactly. And I guess what I'm asking is if someone else out there has been through this system and can give me some input, or if you can give me some input as where do I go? It's no good going down, standing up outside a door of PVT that's locked. I've been there. I've done that.
And, well, I've exhausted many of the things that you said you've already done would have been the exact same things I would have advised you to attempt. So if anyone's gone through this particular process and you're listening to the program, if you have some helpful advice for Jennifer and you get it to me, I'll be sure to get it to you.
Thank you, Patty.
Good luck. Keep me in the loop. And if I find out anything, Jennifer, I'll call you.
I sure will. I'll call every week.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jennifer. Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's always a tricky question, where am I on the wait list? But even if people understand, you're number 10. And historically speaking, number 10 has to wait 6 months. Just pick a number. Then you can come up with a plan for 6 months, as opposed to just flying blind and coming up with a short-term plan that might require a long-term plan. Let's get a break in. Final word of the morning. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let us go. Line number 1. Caller, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. I was listening to the people calling in about dementia and Alzheimer's. On those units, or even if a dementia patient is put on, like, in a room on a different floor, there's no security or dementia. For dementia and Alzheimer's patients. And this has been going on for years. And there's fall risk assessments done, and patients who are prone to trying to escape and stuff like that. And there's alarm beds that the hospital has that they can put patients in. Doorway alarms, which if the patient attaches to the doorway, the metal is magnetic. The metal on the doors, if they walk through that, the alarm goes off. And they also have clothing alarms, which attach to their clothing that is magnetic. And if it falls off the device, the alarm itself, the alarm activates. It's easy fixes, but there's not enough of them, and which would be better protection for patients and fall risk assessments. And on psychiatry, there's risk alarms for staff that if they're at risk of harm by, psychiatry patients or violent dementia patients, that you're protected. And within a couple minutes, you have risk assessment, which is staff trained, which can come to your aid within a minute or two to help you. We have violent patients that are on dementia floors with non-violent patients. So it's high risk, and government is aware, so is the health authority, and the nursing union is speaking about staff safety and injuries, and patient injuries as well. All this has to be documented and reported if there's an incident. and then it goes straight to 4 managers on the floor, and the head management of the health authority. So why are we falling short to all this injury and people escaping?
Good question. And it kind of depends on the setting, right? I mean, the ward, 4 North B at the Health Sciences Centre, is not equipped for the type of protection and safety required by some dementia patients, like in a long-term care facility, where they have constructed them for that exact reason. So I guess it kind of means something about the setting as much as the precautions that you rightfully point out. And I'm glad you did. You've had the last word this morning. Thank you for calling.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, there we go. Good show today. Big thanks to all hands. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.